Hello and welcome to the United Stand. I hope you're all doing very, very well. It is Sunday Night Live and I've got my guests with me. I'll have to alternate on the screen because I've set the wrong studio up. But Manchester United's youth policy at Manchester United, funnily enough, Jose Mourinho had a little bit of criticism over the season. I think that's fair to say. But I think today is a positive in relation to not just Manchester United's youth, but also the fringe players like Bastian Schweinsteiger as well. Has his youth policy been effective? Are we overreacting to the fact that it was only Wigan? We're going to delve into that a little bit now. But first of all, I'll throw it to my guest. I've got Ross and Sander on the show. You'll see Ross first. We were going to talk about this before the game, so there's no hidden agenda or anything like that. Because we knew it was going to be a relevant thing. Either he was going to pick the youth and play them like he did, or he was going to pick his strong team like he has for most of this season, and we would be saying, why is he not using the youth or the fringe? And we come out of this game with a fantastic 4-0 win. We were just talking about it then. We've got Schweinsteiger making his full debut. Fosu Mensah played for well over an hour. So you could argue that he plays the youth. However, some people have said it's taken too long to do it. Where do you think Jose Mourinho... I've got a theory, but I want to get yours, Ross. Where do you think Jose Mourinho... what do you think he's really doing with Manchester United's youth? Because you can't escape the fact that today only an idiot wouldn't think when you sub Fosu Mensah, a youth player, for another youth player in Schweinsteiger making his debut, the ground erupted, and that won't be lost on someone like Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think Mourinho will know. I mean, it'll take a blind man not to see that the talent that's in our youth setup, and he'd have been fully aware. I alluded to it earlier a little bit on the watch-along. I just think that, he's wanted to give the squad players a chance, and he's got an absolutely massive squad, even if you take the youth out of it. And I think he's given them all a fair share. People like Memphis and Schneiderlin have had their chances, haven't taken them, they've gone. And I think he's getting to that happy medium now in the squad where he can actually, people know. If you start playing sort of the likes of Fosu Mensah above Ashley Young, it just means that Ashley Young has no future at this club whatsoever, which you're starting to see now. But I think at the start of the season, he just wanted to give, the 23-man squad that he had a chance to prove to him that they were good enough. And I think sort of half of them have, other half are still the jury's out. And I think it's now the time to bring this youth through. And I think it's the perfect time in the season as well, because, with the heavy condensation of fixtures that we're going to get, I think having this youth and exuberance coming in, wanting to prove themselves, is perfect timing.
Yeah, I have a theory on it, and I don't necessarily think it's a right theory. It's just my theory on it. And a lot of people in the live comments saying Beck Howell buzzing he played Fosu Mensah today. Overreacting, all good, but don't trust the youth for Premier League, says Petter's son. Salim Hussein, Mourinho wants to win all the cups. And it's only fitting that the youth played today considering Warren Joyce managing, says Juvenile J, which is a good point. But as I come to Xander, my theory on it is this: that what Jose Mourinho is essentially doing is he's put the pressure onto the experienced players within the squad. We could have used fringe players and youth in the youth cup, in the League Cup. We have to use them in the Youth Cup. We could have used them more. Well, we played Reading in the previous round, but it's encouraging that he used them today. But ultimately, if he plays the youth and the fringe over the first few months of the season and we lose games, then he puts a load of pressure on himself and on those players. We're in a position now, January, we're in every tournament, we're in a good chance with the league. What an opportunity at home to introduce the youth players. I don't think it's lost on him at all. I just think he purposely hasn't used them much until now. And actually, I don't think we'll see much of them between now and the end of the season, because I think he'll stick with the experienced players of building the dynasty that he wants at United in his first season, and then he'll gradually build on bringing the youth in next season. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Sander. Maybe you think that we will see more of them now.
Well, I don't know. Wigan, they have got Warren Joyce. He has set them up well, and they have won 3 on the bounce, but they're not a great side. So I think today was a perfect opportunity for the youth to be played. I mentioned it on my Twitter, and Jose Mourinho has mentioned it in his past 2 press conferences. He said, I look at my wall and I see a lot of fixtures, and that could be a big part to play in it. That we're in all competitions, we've got a lot of games to play, and we were against a lesser side today. So I think he chose his moment perfectly, and it's a good day to give the youth a run out.
Yeah, I can't say any more than that we were ecstatic when we did the team news on the watch along earlier that to see Fosu Mensah playing, and I do think about the youth. I think it really does come down to the fact that Twan Seaby today, did he set the world on fire? Probably not. But it's not really about that. It's about getting 20 minutes in a Manchester United shirt, because his journey to being a first team player will be a long one, and he needs to get that game time. What I saw from from Twan Seaby was what I've seen when I've watched him play for the reserves and the youth side, is that he's very composed on the ball, he's very fast, but he's got a massive step up to come into the Premier League and into Manchester United's first team, and he may need a loan. I'm sure he will do, but it would have done him no harm. Fosu Mensah, I think, is further along that journey. Last season he showed that he was capable. We have been frustrated about him because we feel that he should have had more game time. But just about Fosu Mensah very quickly, Ross. There was a comment on our match reaction from somebody saying that they're not convinced Fosu Mensah's ready yet. Love him. That was the comment. Absolutely love him. Think he's going to be a fantastic player for Manchester United, but his touch is a bit off, his decision making's a little bit off, and he probably could do with a loan, which is something that I've mentioned before. What was your thoughts on Fosu Mensah?
Do you know what? I think a loan for him, it wouldn't be the end of the world. And I think Fosu Mensah, you look at other players that we loaned out and compared to Fosu Mensah, and I think he, sometimes I think United fans might overhype him, but then at the same time, I think maybe not, because he is such a beast. And I think if you look at a team like Watford, because Fosu Mensah's got such a physical presence, he could really thrive in a team like that and push his United career forward. And I think a loan would be good for him, because you know what? If he was getting a lot of first team football, I'd say no, because I think he's good enough to maybe not starting every game, but be getting minutes every game at least. But maybe Jose doesn't see him at that level yet, because we forget how young he is, because he's got such an adult physique. But I think a loan for him, could definitely improve his game at United. Just quickly, Mark, I might have, when Sanders next on, I might have to hang up and call you back if that's okay, mate, because I'm on 4G again.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I'll go back to Sander then, because that makes it quite easily. Liverpool blown away by Wolverhampton yesterday. It's a good point, that is. They played their kids, we played our kids and youth and reserves, and we still beat a Championship side. But I don't really want to compare us to Liverpool. I think we're going to a better place. A loan would be good for Tim, says Louise O'Donoghue. I think what he needs at this stage is just consistent Premier League football. I don't care who it's for. I just think his touch is slightly off and his decision making is slightly off, and to go to that next stage, he needs to play regularly, and I don't think we can offer him that at the moment. Lovenish B says, Mark, I do think after the defeat at Hull, Jose started thinking, well, let's try with the fringe players and see how it goes. So it was perhaps a blessing in disguise. Picking up on some of those fringe players, Sandra, I want to talk about Anthony Martial for a moment or two. Anthony Martial, I thought playing up front was dreadful. I was really, really concerned. Went to the left wing, and that's his position for me. He was absolutely fantastic. I don't know what your thoughts are on Anthony Martial and his future at Manchester United, and whether he's done enough to force himself into the team to play again on Wednesday. But one thing I would want to say about Anthony Martial is this, that a lot of people have been picking up on his attitude. I think even Gary Neville said something about his attitude the other day. And I was thinking about it yesterday about it actually, and purposely kept it back for tonight. Anthony Martial's visible attitude and miserableness, as some people call it, is exactly the same as it was last year when he was scoring goals all over the place. I just think people are very quick to jump on him because he looks a bit miserable and withdrawn. But we all used to say the same last year when he was scoring goals, and I'm glad that he had that game today, because again, he's another player that I just have got a lot of time for.
Well, I mean, yeah, not every player has to be shouting, screaming, jumping, rolling about the place to show that they're a good player. I mean, he looks like an introverted, shy guy. So as long as he's doing the things on the pitch, which we saw from him today in the second half, then I'm happy with him. First half, like you say, poor, very poor. Like you say, again, striker at the moment. I don't know about the future, but at the moment, it doesn't suit him. He's best when he's got space to run into and men to take on. And, up front, you've got your back to goal, and it just doesn't suit him. But in the second half, fantastic. Went past players. I even saw him and Mkhitaryan doing some skills together. I don't know if you saw that, but it put a smile on my face. It made me laugh because I'm hearing people say, he's lacking confidence and this and that. And I mean, he's going past people and he's doing these tricks. That's not a guy that has low confidence. I heard Gary Lineker say in the post-match kind of debate with the pundits, and I'm not saying that pundits are always right, but he said that, his performance or lack of it had a massive effect on him, which rightly so. But if you're going to get anywhere in life, and I'm only 16, so I'm not one to comment, but if you're going to get anywhere in life, as soon as you take a hit, you can't just fall down and let it take over you. You've got to get back up. Without sounding cringe, you've got to get back up and fight for your place. And I really think he can do that. And with performances like today in the second half, he'll have to force his way back into the team.
Yeah, I was very impressed with him. I thought he was fantastic, in fact, in the second half. But in relation to, let's talk about him, Ross. Schweinsteiger, I just think he has blown away the critics and was absolutely superb today.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I think he's, by the way, his biggest critic today. And, I think he's done this for a reason, but which is Jose Mourinho. And Mourinho's comments after the game about the fact that he's, including him in the Europa League team, just goes to show you that if Mourinho puts you out there with a point to prove, and, you can prove that point. And I think he's done more than that today. He was absolutely fantastic. And I just think that the story of Bastian Schweinsteiger at United, has to this point this season been phenomenal, and he's just shown that pure profession. You can forget. I know a lot of people will say that he earns a lot of money for doing what he does, so he should be the ultimate professional. But there's so many footballers that would take the way he was treated completely the wrong way and go completely the other way with what he's done, and to work his way back into the team, and to not only we kind of had the cameo 10-minute performances where he come on and. To be honest, the United crowd made it a little bit of a joke. But, it was good today and he was fantastic. And as far as I'm concerned, I want to see him start a competitive Premier League game for Manchester United because I honestly think he was good enough based on that performance today.
Kieran Kennedy, Bastian should be involved more from now to the end of the season. I mean, this could be the best thing that's happened to United in a long time. We the first team's gone a bit flat after a very good December and January run of results. It's flat. And there was 4 or 5 players today that have not been involved in that run. Schweinsteiger, Martial, Luke Shaw, Chris Smalling. Add into that Fosu Mensah if you want to, but 4 players that I think can come into the team and have varying levels of experience, but can be first team players. I want to give Chris. I spoke about Schweinsteiger in my match reaction. Could I just say, lads, somebody's audio is really causing me an issue when I'm talking, and if you could just hit the mute button on the Skype thing when you're not being spoken to, that'd be brilliant, thank you. I think it's Sander, but I'm not sure. But it was just fantastic from Schweinsteiger today. I've covered it in my match reaction video. If you want to go and watch that later, do go and watch it. So I don't want to dwell on Schweinsteiger too much. Suffice to say, I've been very consistent, even from the summer. Absolutely outraged that he was training with the kids. I love Schweinsteiger. I went mad when we signed him. If you ever watch the match reaction, the transfer reaction when he signed, love him, want him involved, agree with Ross, and I think he's got so much to offer. But one person I really, controversial probably, but one player I really want to talk about is Chris Smalling. Nice little topic for you here, Sander. What were your thoughts on Chris Smalling and his future at Manchester United? Considering, I would say there's a good 70-80% of United fans who've turned against him this year and expecting to be sold in the summer. I think. What are your thoughts on Smalling and what he can offer United? I mean, I suppose it was only Wigan, you've got to say that.
Well, I mean, after the Chelsea game where I did my first Skype goal bridge, actually, I was going on about how poor he was that game. And last year, we were waxing lyrical about him, saying, no, he's this great defender, next United captain, some people were saying. But for me, like you say, Mark, that's because he always had those 2 defensive midfielders in front of him. That, alongside Daley Blind, who, he might not be the best in the air, etc., but he's a very wise and intelligent footballer. Then with your right back and left back, makes him have a lot of protection. So he was hardly ever exposed. And now that he doesn't have that kind of protection, I think, we are starting to see how good he actually is. For me, he's an Englishman, and it's good always to have an Englishman in your team, whether he's Mancunian or not. But I think there's far better out there. I really don't rate him. He'll do a job, and he's good in the air, and he's decent at passing, this and that. but there's far better out there. And we see that with 22-year-old Eric Bailly. Just, we'd never heard of him, and now he's with us, and we see how much better he is. Whether he is actually that good, or it's just we're used to Chris Smalling, and now we're seeing a decent defender. I really don't rate Chris Smalling. I think he'll keep him to the end of the season. Well, obviously, there's only 2 days or whatever in the January transfer window, and I think he'll go in January. I think we'll sign 1 or 2 even centre backs. I think Rojo and Jones will go as well, or one of them. I think definitely. I've really not been impressed by Chris Smalling, and I thought today at times he wasn't great.
Yeah, good. Just want to say Manchester United transfer news is incoming. We are going to touch about that. We know that it's deadline day on Tuesday, and we will be discussing that in a moment. But to Chris Smalling, I think he deserved a shout out. I thought he played well today. I think Xander's spot on. I've said it myself that the reason Heyman and Daley Blind were so good last year is because they had 2 defensive midfielders in front of them, and most centre-backs would be good with that protection. This year, as we saw against Chelsea, you get exposed when you've got to defend. What I would say, Ross, and the reason I brought him in is, one, I thought he deserved... Somebody even said on our live comments that he deserved man of the match because he played that well, and he did score a goal. What I like about Smalling is, out of the 4 centre-backs we've got, he's up there in the top 2 as somebody who actually can win the ball in the air. He's a threat from corners, which, I mean, the funny thing is, I don't know whether people have realised this, I can't keep myself away from Schweinsteiger for too long, but we've scored 4 corners in the last 14 months, and Schweinsteiger's scored 2 of them. So, he was impressive off corners, Schweinsteiger, today. But Smalling is a threat from corners. He scored... No, sorry, I've got that wrong. We've scored... Oh, no, we didn't. Smalling's goal wasn't a corner. Smalling scored one of those corners, and Pogba scored the other. But he's a threat in the air. I appreciate his inadequacies and the issues with Smalling, but if Mourinho can turn Rojo and Jones into defenders, what can you do with Chris Smalling, who, let's face it, a year ago was probably England's number 1 centre-back?
Yeah, it's a tough one, Smalling, to be honest, because I've been quite critical of him this season as well, and I think that doesn't go without sort of substance, because his positional play for Manchester United, and I totally agree with you, Mark. He, in the air, I think he is our best. I think he's better than Eric Bailly in the air in a defensive situation, but when the ball's on the floor, his positioning can be very out there. And I think, and we've alluded to this before, the fact that he had 2 central defensive midfielders in front of him. And when you're playing with Michael Carrick, it's literally like playing with a centre back and midfielder wrapped into one. I think he's a fantastic player for a defender to play against. But this season, he's been a little bit exposed. And I totally agree, Mark. I think Mourinho could and should mould Chris Smalling, because I think Mourinho is probably one of the best defensive coaches there is. I mean, I've seen him turn horrendous defenders into pretty good centre-backs, and that's throughout his whole career. That was at Porto and Inter Milan as well, and he's done the same. I mean, no one at Manchester United or at the United stand could have predicted that we would go on a winning run with Rojo and Jones at centre-back, and they've both been fantastic as well, and Rojo is testament to that, and his positional play is fantastic. They're never going to get the aerial abilities, because you can't grow a centre back. Their height is their height. Where Chris Smalling, I think, I agree, he's big, and if Mourinho works on him, he should become an absolute world class centre back. I wonder why Mourinho is not working with him at the minute, and why he's preferring Rojo and Jones. I hope, and we've said this about countless amounts of players at Manchester United this season with Mourinho, and it was great to see the lads on BT Sport give Mourinho some praise on his handling of players and some of his criticism of players and dropping them, because Chris Smalling is a better defender than Marcus Rojo. That goes without saying, but if he'd probably rather have a 100% fighting fit Marcus Rojo than Chris Smalling at 50%, and I think that's what Mourinho wants from his players. He wants them at 100%.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Wilf says that Smalling's been poor since he changed his name back from Mike to Chris. Jerome says Schweinsteiger's first half was awful, but you've just brought me into the comment I wanted to make. You've set a trap there that I'm going to blow away, Jerome, because what I want to say is this. I don't think I've seen a better assist this season other than Schweinsteiger's cross. It was absolutely world class. And just picking up on what Ross was saying there about people good in the air, Wigan's defender was 6'7" and won most things in the air. We put a lot of crosses in the first half, but Schweinsteiger's cross, It wasn't a cross. It was like a super cross. It was like it was just unbelievable. He put so much height on it to beat the centre backs, to make it drop back down, and then there's Fellaini on the back post, who's towering above their right back. It was just an absolutely superb cross because of the height and dip he got back down on it, and the perfect goal. And it just shows you. I think this season we've been sort of subjected to bad cross after bad cross after bad corner after bad corner. And I think what we saw today, and what we've seen with Mkhitaryan sometimes, and what we saw with Martial today as well, is some decent crossing. I don't think we appreciate what a decent cross is anymore, because we've got people like Valencia and Darmian and others who just put a cross in that's an okay cross, but it doesn't beat the first man, or it's not in the right areas. That cross today from Schweinsteiger was just simplicity and world class, because he showed exactly how you beat a team that's, even if they've got a 6'7" giant. It was absolutely superb. I do want to talk about Rooney, but I want to talk about Manchester United and their transfer news. Just a little bit of a mid-show shout out. Please drop us a like on the video. Very important that you like the videos. There's a lot of you watching. Please like it. You obviously enjoy watching the United stand. One click, like the video. That would be really appreciated. And if there is anybody out there who hasn't subscribed, I always do the wrong hand. No, I did the right hand. That's our ticker. Please subscribe and knock the numbers up. The bigger we get, the bigger your voice gets. And do remember tomorrow night at 8:30 is Skype Goldbridge. It's your show. Anything you want to talk about, anything you disagree with tonight, anything new you want to talk about tomorrow, it's your show. There is no script. You dictate it. And Drawty, I've seen us on the live comments. He's done a lot of work on the quiz. The quiz is different to the trial quiz we did last week. Thursday night, 3 contestants, big prizes. I've not decided how we're going to get the contestants sorted out, but Thursday night, you can come on that. Brilliant. Can't wait for it. It's going to be really good. But let's go back to Sander. Let's talk about transfer news. 2 days to go. Manchester United transfer news incoming. We're about to sign... No, I'm only joking. I don't know whether we're going to sign anybody. I'm done with that game. But I think, actually, Chris Smalling's quite relevant. And in a subconscious way, I've come out with another pearl of wisdom there, because I actually thought before today's game we might go and sign a centre-back before Tuesday. But now I'm thinking maybe Chris Smalling's form has made Jose Mourinho think that maybe he doesn't need to. Do you think we're going to sign anybody in the next 2 days, Sander? Or sell anybody?
No, I really don't think so. As we've seen in the past, in the summer transfer window, he likes to do his business early. He's an organised man. We saw that photo of him when he just signed for us, with his whole wall full of fixtures and don't know whatever else was on there. But I really don't think he's likely to do something in the last 2 days. I don't think that's him. I think that's Moyes, not Mourinho. I think he's just going to see this year with the squad he's got, really assess the players he's got in it and pick the deadwood out if he hasn't already. And then in the summer we'll see. So I think we will see quite a few exits and quite a few entries.
So you don't think we'll see anybody leaving this January transfer window either? Because apparently there was some mention by Jose Mourinho of Ashley Young leaving.
Oh really? I thought he said. Well, I haven't seen it, but I heard he wanted him to stay. Well, if he has, I've heard that he might be going on loan to Watford. That's what I've heard. I don't know what's in that or who said it, but I have heard that. I'm not going to cry about it if it does happen. Probably be happy if it does happen. He's not going to, he's not going to be a massive miss for us. And I don't think if he goes to a Premier League team, I don't think he's going to help them too much either. So if it happens, fair enough. I don't think it will, because I think, I think he's more likely to bring people in. I don't think anyone will come in because, like I said, I think he's more likely to do that at the beginning of the window. Maybe with his exits, maybe he doesn't mind doing that a little bit late, but I certainly don't think anyone will come in.
No, I'm just vigorously typing away here. Don't freeze on me. Don't freeze on me. What about you, Ross? I'll get you visually in a minute, but have you got any thoughts? We were talking about it a little bit earlier, but it was, to be fair, it was before full time. Do you think we are likely to sign anybody before Tuesday?
Like I said earlier, I think we will. I think Jose will try, and I think it might be trying knowing that he's going to fail. but I can't see us not putting in a cheeky bid for someone, to be honest. So I think that full well may happen, but whether we get someone, I don't know. And do you know what? Seeing Bastion's performance today, and that might, that would be going through Mourinho's mind. I mean, there was a great clip during that game of Mourinho after Bastion scored, and it was almost a synopsis as the same clip where Hernandez missed that penalty for United, and you saw Van Gaal's reaction. At that point, you knew that Hernandez was doomed. And at this point where I saw Mourinho, I thought there may be a ray of light for Bastion at United, and that I think Mourinho wants to use a squad, and I think he wants to use the youth that he has. I don't think he disregards what they are, but I think that a bid will be made for someone, but I'm not so sure whether we'll actually get the player that we want. And we said earlier, with centre backs, we could well do with a centre back, but I just don't feel. I feel like Jose will feel like he has a better chance of getting a better player in summer. I don't think he's willing to just sort of buy stopgaps because we've got plenty of them. We've got Ashley Young. We've got Wayne Rooney. Bring Wayne Rooney into that, but we've got the Ashley Youngs, and they are stopgaps for United, to be honest. So why buy another one?
I want to talk about where we're going to end the season, what cups we can go for, can we prioritise the Europa League and the league, and I'll quantify that by saying this. Name me an English Premier League side that's done both the Europa League and the league and finished in the top four, because there isn't one. The Europa League kills your league form if you look at history, whether it's been Spurs in the past, Liverpool last year, all the way to the final of the Europa. They lose it. Liverpool had a good chance of top four last year, especially when you consider that Man United finished fifth under Van Gaal. So, but they put all their eggs in one basket with the Europa League, and they ended up with nothing. I've got concerns about it. We'll talk about that in a minute. My thoughts on whether we'll sign anybody, I sort of fall into the same category. I know for a fact that if we offered £45 million to Roma for Manolas, they'd take it. I think for a fact we should take that option tomorrow or Tuesday, because we bought Vidic in January. It gives them 3 or 4 months to get used to the league, and then they're incorporated into the team and the league for the new season. Will we do it? Probably not. Apparently he's going to go to Inter anyway, which disappoints me because I think he fits the bill of being somebody who can deal with the quick, small player, but is totally dominant in the air. Lindelof could happen. I don't know what has happened with that, because I really do, and I even said it was a done deal, and I'm going to look an idiot again, but that's not me. That's who I get the information from, who normally are right, but they were wrong on this, and they were wrong on Mbola as well. But it could still happen. There's still 2 days to go. I always put Lindelof as my 5th choice centre-back anyway, behind Manolas, behind Van Dijk, behind Howard, behind Jimenez at Atletico Madrid. We can sign somebody. I wouldn't say don't have any anticipation that we will sign anybody in the next 2 days, but at the moment it's looking a bit unlikely, and I think that's because of what Ross was just saying there. Smalling even today will have made Mourinho think, well, I've got 4 centre-backs, whether they're stopgaps or not. Schweinsteiger gives him another option in midfield. He might feel he's got enough to get through this season, because we're not going to win the league. I think if he was going for the league, maybe he'd have a different thought. But yeah, and as Sander was saying as well, that either Sander or Ross, that it's what you can get in the summer, and you might be able to get better in the summer because it's a very difficult transfer window. I spoke to Ross about this a little bit earlier, so I'll give Sander the chance first. Wayne Rooney. The Daily Mirror is a bad paper. It's a bad paper. It talks rubbish. But they were adamant this morning that Wayne Rooney will sign for a Chinese club in the next month because their transfer window closes in February. It's sort of a double-edged question, this. One, do you think Rooney's going to go, whether it's this month or in the summer? Or do you think he'll just stay at Manchester United happy being what is, based on today's performance, a squad player?
Well, I hope he goes to China, to be honest, and that's no disrespect to Rooney. It's just simply because that's the most amount of money we're going to be able to get for him. If he goes to Everton, if they're not going to pay that much for him, because he isn't that great anymore. And China, I think I think they really want him. He's that kind of profile of a player. Whether he's passed it or not, the name still stands, right? So I think they'd love him, and I think to send him off to China for, I don't know how much they'd pay for him, I'm not going to think about it, because they could come up with like 40, 50 million. I wouldn't put it past him to do that. So yeah, I'd love him to go to China. I wouldn't want him to stay simply because, one, it kind of puts pressure on the manager to choose him simply because of his name and how much friends he's got in the dressing room. And two, we're going to be paying him a lot of money, and I think. Obviously he's not worth it because he's not really doing much. So I think I'd send him off to China if it was my choice.
Hirsch Puri says the Daily Mail is so much better. The Daily Mirror is so much better than the Sun and the Daily Star. Mark, I think Hirsch might write for the Mirror because this is the paper that said Anthony Martial, what a waste of money, and other pearls of wisdom. But the media's gone downhill, and you've named 3 of the worst. I mean, they just come out with stuff to get people to read their papers. Was it last week they did it about Mason, basically saying he was on death's door, and it wasn't even true. It's just all about getting people to click it. It's British press has always been bad. It's the gutter press, and to be honest, I ain't got much time for them. I ain't got much time for referees because they're all anti-Mourinho. But in relation to Rooney, Ross, I'll throw it back to you because I know you love Rooney. 2 people have actually said that we'll come back to this because we're going to do it in a minute. That Chelsea actually finished 3rd the year they won the Europa League, which I'd not realised. But my point's still valid. There are a lot of teams that have struggled with their league form when they've tried to go for the Europa League as well. Right back to Aston Villa about. I don't remember how many years ago that was, but under Martin O'Neill, but they tried to do both and ended up with nothing. But yes, Wayne Rooney, today's performance, Ross, I described it as yet another step towards a decline into retirement. He got the lowest player rating out of everybody. Everybody got 7 out of 10 or above. I've given Rooney a 6. I thought some people might say it's generous, some people might say it's harsh. I based it on total honesty. Never looked like scoring in a game where there was plenty of opportunities. Never looked up to the pace of the game with people like Mkhitaryan and Martial. Got pushed off the ball a lot. It wasn't as bad as his Watford performance back in September, but there are aspects of his game that were just. I feel sorry for him really. I don't know whether some of it's in his head, but he just looked. He's clearly a half a yard off the pace. His touch looked bad. He got knocked off the ball a lot. I don't know where I stand on Rooney. I think he's a very good squad player and he's clearly a very good influence on the team. And you've got people like Marcus Rashford saying what a legend he is. And he's been an icon in world football for the last 10, 15 years. The simple reason he's on decline is because he's been playing since 16. He's never had a bad injury. And, some players do start to decline at 31. We can't all be Ryan Giggs doing yoga till they're 40 and playing at Premier League level. I just think he's on that decline, but I still do think he can offer a team something. And I don't know whether Wayne Rooney at 31 is happy being a bit part player at United. What do you think the future is for him?
Well, firstly, I am a Rooney fan, like you say, but I am a Rooney fan of what Rooney's done for Manchester United rather than what he's doing now. Because he's been a fantastic player for us over the last century and his goals have been amazing, and to be at that top level for that many years is quite an achievement in itself. Because a lot of players would never be able to sustain that. But I do agree. Today wasn't that great. It was quite poor, and Rooney has come into a transition at United where, he is going to be a bit part player. The only problem Wayne Rooney has at Manchester United is, which was different to Ryan Giggs, which is different to Paul Scholes, is that wage. And if he didn't have that wage, people would stop talking about Wayne Rooney being on the bench because it wouldn't be a problem. But the fact that we're paying him an astronomical amount of money, everyone needs to see him start, otherwise it's deemed a waste. And that's the issue about Wayne Rooney. I agree with Sander. I would like to see him go to China because it will just end Wayne Rooney and that debate. We can stop talking about it. We can appreciate what he's done for Manchester United, and that could be it. We don't have to talk about if he's good enough anymore, if he's not, because it will just end. I don't think he will go to China personally, and I still think he has got something to offer for any team, and I think that includes Manchester United. But the problem is with Wayne Rooney, because of the salary and because of who he is, Mourinho seems to want to shoehorn him into every game, and I don't think that's where Wayne Rooney's at the minute. I think, you look at our previous game and that free kick where he broke the record. It was right to bring him on, and he was a fantastic impact. But there's other games where Rooney substituted on, and I think that's totally the wrong substitution. When sometimes we've got Martial, Mkhitaryan on the bench, and you think there's no way Wayne Rooney should be coming on a field of play over them, because Mkhitaryan, I know that Martin Keown gave him man of the match today because he was phenomenal, but he wasn't man of the match in my eyes. But Rooney's having to compete with world-class players, and that's only going to get worse at Manchester United with when we get the summer transfer. And we all say that we're getting Griezmann. I firmly believe that, and that's going to make Rooney's position even more unsustainable. But if he didn't have that salary, I'd still like to keep him in and around the squad. But at the same time, if a bid come in, and I agree with Sandra, I think it will be around the 40, 50 million pounds mark. I think Manchester United would be happy, Mourinho would be happy, and Rooney would be happy, and it's the best solution to what's becoming a problem that shouldn't really be one.
I think the best point you make there is a very good one. That it's the shoehorning of him into the team, and the fact that he always gets brought on at 70 minutes for Mata. And I think if Rooney was removed from Manchester United and he wasn't that option anymore, we'd certainly, very similar to Fellaini in some ways, if you remove both of those two players and they're not an option anymore, then we're going to use what many fans feel are better options off the bench. But whilst he's there and he's the club captain and he's an icon and he's massive within the club and the dressing room, like Lynn Hall says, Rooney's a last 20 minutes sub, sadly. He can help close games out, but he's too slow for 90 minutes in the position he plays. If he was a good defensive midfielder, it might be different, but he isn't. And I think that's where people were trying to shoehorn him in as a midfielder, and he clearly isn't going to be a midfielder. He could play midfield for someone like, I don't know, Swansea or something like that, but he's not a Manchester United midfielder. He never was. He was one of the world's best number 10s, and he was a very good number 9, but he can't do that anymore. But watch this space with Rooney, because I think it's an interesting one. Well, Will United says, I disagree with you, Mark. I think Rooney still has a future at United. In my opinion, he can make an impact from the bench in the same way Giggs did in the last stage of his career. I started shaking my head before I finished the sentence. Ryan Giggs was playing for another 9 years. Ryan Giggs at 31 was still Ryan Giggs of 25. There's just I think personally, the Mark Goldbridge opinion on this is that people are unfairly putting Rooney into the category of Scholes and Giggs and Carrick, players who were still very good in their mid-30s, into their 40 in Giggs' case. But let's remember, Giggs became a midfielder and was a very good midfielder. Rooney will never be a midfielder. He's not a midfielder. They've tried to do it. It's not going to work. And Gary Lineker retired at like 30. Some players are finished at 30, 31. Gerrard was finished around that time, but because he was a midfielder, they moved him back to that sort of like quarterback, centre defensive midfielder who hits 40-yard passes, still good at free kicks, can still do the 1-2s now and again, but he was always a midfielder. It's difficult for Rooney. I remember Peter Beardsley playing until he was about 38, but he never really had great speed anyway. So Rooney's got to adapt his game to something that he's never done to elongate his Manchester United career. And I think it comes down to the simplest thing with Rooney. People think it's hate, but this is the sentence I keep saying. Wayne Rooney is better than being a squad player for Manchester United. His whole career, he's broken records, he's won everything. He should be going off somewhere where he can be the big fish in a big pond, in a big or a small pond. Unfortunately, it's not Manchester United anymore. I'd love him to go to Everton. It's the club he supports. He loves Liverpool. He drives down to Liverpool to have his kids born there. Everton, the club that it started with. I think Wayne Rooney playing for Everton week in, week out could make them a better team. It's whether he wants to take a pay cut, and it's whether Everton would pay us the money. But there's a lot of money at Everton now. Maybe they would. £20 million. A wage drop to 200 grand a week. He could go and do 2 years there, and I'd watch it with great interest and hope he did well. I think that's what should happen. It's not hate. It's about what's best for everybody, really. I just don't see what he offers us anymore. Let's talk about Manchester United anyway. Manchester United, we are still in the League Cup. We're in the final in a few weeks' time. We are still in the FA Cup. Draw tomorrow, 5th round. Holders of that cup. I want us to win it again because I didn't enjoy it as much last year because I was worried we were going to keep Van Gaal. We're still in the Europa League. That kicks in a couple of weeks. And Premier League is still there. We've got a fantastic run of games. Starting with Hull on Wednesday night at home. We've got a fantastic run of games. We win those games, we will get into the top 4 very, very quickly. I know it feels like we've been stuck 6th forever, but it will happen. My question to Xander this time is, what is Manchester United's priority? What is your priority? What do you think is achievable? Do you think we can go all out for all 4 and win them? Do you think it's dangerous to try and do that because we might end up, tiring too many players out and hitting the end of the season? Well, the reality is, if we're in a chase for top 4 at the end of this season, we have got a bitch. Sorry, I retract that. It's a female dog, but it's sexist. We have got a terrible run in the league. We have got like City, Arsenal, Chelsea, and I think Spurs in the last few games of the season. We've got a good run now, but April gets really hard. If we went over the next 2 months for absolutely everything, and then we hit April and we're just tired out, it all falls apart. So do you think we should prioritise anything? Do you think we have got the squad to go for everything?
Well, I said it on Twitter earlier. Mourinho has to prioritise two cups, essentially. We look tired, we look fatigued. And in my opinion, we can forget about the League Cup. That's one game against Southampton. We played that. I think we'll win it. Let's forget about that. We've got the Europa League, FA Cup, and Premier League to think about. In my opinion, we sack off the Europa League, and we go for the FA Cup. I just still think it's a great cup to win, and we go for the Premier League. Mark, you say that April gets very, very hard, but if you spin it around the other way, it could be a very, very good month as well. Because if we win against Tottenham, Arsenal, and Chelsea, we're getting closer and closer, and it stops. It's like a 6-pointer game. So I think we leave, in my opinion, we leave the Europa League and we concentrate on the FA Cup and the Premier League.
FA Cup and the Premier League. Interesting. I'm just reading whilst listening to that as well. Bab Dad on the live comments. Not every player is dead at 31. He's going mad. He used to like me. He doesn't like me now because of what I've said about Rooney. I think he should call in tomorrow and Skype Goldbridge and have his say. I think it'd be fantastic. I mean, if you don't like stuff, that's why we do Skype Goldbridge. Skype in, have a go. We've had Liverpool fans on. I'm not going to argue back. It's your show. Have your say, and whatever it is will be allowed and listened to. That's where Xander started, isn't it, Xander?
I did. It was the Monday after the Chelsea game. That was my first one.
And now look, he's on the Sunday show. So Skype. If you've got any issues, don't get mad on typing away. Get on Skype Goldbridge tomorrow night and give us your thoughts. I don't know if anybody knows how many games it is to get to the final of the Europa League. I know we've got Saint Etienne, but I'll honestly put my hands up and say I don't know anything about the Europa League, and I don't know how many games it is. I've got a funny feeling there's at least 2 rounds before you get to the quarterfinals. I think if we win Saint Etienne, I think we've got another game. Then that's 2 legs. Then quarterfinals, which is 2 legs. Then the semi-finals, which is 2 legs. I think it's 9 games to get to the Europa League final. Xander's right with the League Cup, that's 1 game. The FA Cup, we're into the 5th round, so that's 1 quarter-final, semi-final, final. That's 4 games if we get to the final. And then you've got all the league games. So I don't know whether you sit on this, Ross. Xander's saying that we should prioritise the FA Cup and the Premier League because the League Cup can take care of itself, and the Europa League is obviously a lot of games. Do you think we can do it all realistically, or do you think we should be looking at I did say in December, if we're within 5 points of top 4, come the first game against Saint Etienne, we've got a big decision to make.
Yeah, it's a really difficult one, that, and I kind of look at it through rose-tinted glasses, to be honest, because I do feel that Manchester United's squad, and this is the overall squad, not the first 11, should be good enough to win the Europa League, and we should have a Premier League team and an FA Cup team, and we should have a completely separate Europa League team, which may be similar to what we saw today. And I think
Timo James just said exactly the same on the live comments.
Yeah, and I think that's good enough to win the Europa League, and there might be a few minor adjustments. And let's not forget that you could probably add Paul Pogba into that team because the guy's an absolute beast, can just play games galore. So I would like to see United go for all 4, and just based on the fact that I'm going to put my Rooney hat on again, and the fact that players like Wayne Rooney haven't won the Europa League, and a lot of other players in that team, and it will be a personal goal for them. And I think it's the same. Forget me if I'm wrong. I think Jose Mourinho, has he won that tournament? I'm not so sure. It'd be good. It'd be a European title, and if we do get in the Champions League next year, to go in as Europa League winners, and Man United will attract players anyway, but it would just bring this whole aura to Manchester United of winners. And why not? Why not win? We're not going to win 4 but if you consider getting top 4 as a trophy, why not go for all 4?
Exactly. I mean, I've not looked at the Europa League a lot. I'll look at it in the next couple of weeks and we can discuss it. But off the top of my head, obviously Spurs are in it. They're a decent side this season. I'll put my hands up. I think they're the best side I think we've played so far, even though we beat them 1-0. They just came to Old Trafford and didn't bring a striker. I think Roma are good, but they're playing Villarreal, so that will knock one of the two teams out. It's there to be won, and I think it's a fantastic point. I think Mourinho did win the Europa League, UEFA Cup with Porto, because he won it Porto with the UEFA Cup against Celtic, and then the following year he won the Champions League. I mean, this is the quality of manager we've got. He can win UEFA Cups and European Cups with Porto. Pep wins it with Messi and Barcelona, and there's a big difference, but that's a different argument. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic point there, and it's probably one I've not really given enough thought. But today's team should be enough to beat most teams, and it doesn't involve Herrera, Pogba, Zlatan, Carrick, Bailly, Jones, Valencia, Darmian, Rashford, Lingard. You know, we're nearly naming another team. So it is that. But the only concern I had is that in the early stages he was pretty much picking the same team for every single game. If he was willing to do that, then it would work, I think, really well, and we could go for both. What I don't think you can do, and Alex, who's not on tonight, always says, I don't understand what the difference is between Champions League and Europa League. Well, it's very easy. Europa League is rigid. It's Thursday night and it's sometimes Sunday lunchtime, 2.5 days. Champions League, you might play Tuesday night and not play till Sunday. You might play Wednesday night, Saturday, which is similar, but there's a lot more give and take with the Champions League. Europa League is rigid, 2.5 days between games. That's why it's a killer. And we certainly can't put our best team out on a Thursday and then expect to beat somebody like... the thing is, if we played... Most teams in the latter half of the season will be out of all the cups. They're getting a week's rest between each game. You can't do Thursday to Sunday and expect to go somewhere on the Sunday, whoever it is in the Premier League, and get 3 points. It's very difficult. So if we utilise the squad, I think we can do it, but it's difficult.
The problem as well with Europa League, sorry to cut you off there, Mark, but, you know, it might not be the highest quality, the highest standard of game, but you're going to places like Ukraine or wherever, and it might not be the nicest pitch and it might not be the nicest facilities, etc. If you go to Paris, you're staying in a 5-star hotel, which I'm sure they're doing in Ukraine, but, you know, you're flying long, the crowds are just nuts, and if they're not the best team, they'll just sit back and make you work for it. It's never an easy game. So regardless of whether they're a great team or not, it's always such hard work, and I can imagine it takes so much out of these players that it's so difficult to do.
Yeah, I mean, like Liam McDyer's on the same page with you there. He says Donetsk and Zenit would be tough. Exactly, they're tough and they are big travelling. You know, you've got to take into account how far that is. George Kyle, more lengthy travel times in Europa. I think, you know, let's be honest, Saint-Etienne, we should be winning that over tail-legs, and it's, an hour away on the plane, so we should win that. And then I suppose you just got to take it game by game, but it is 9 games to win it, and I think it was hilarious what happened to Liverpool last year, because I think they had an opportunity to get top 4, but Klopp thought he could win the Europa League, and they bottled it in the final, which is what Klopp does. Or the semi-final, or even a home game against Wolves in the FA Cup. They'll bottle it. But it's a risk to go for it. And I did say it in December, so I think I better come back to it. If we're within 5 points of top 4 in mid-February, we've got a decision to make, because if you're within 5 points of top 4 in February, you've got a chance of getting top 4. And I think if it's a choice between top 4 in the Europa League, we should go for top 4. I really do. But I'm going to chuck a couple of scenarios at you. In fact, I'll do you, Xander, because you're up on the screen first. This is just from people I've been reading over Twitter this week, and I wrote them down. Would you take this? 5th in the Premier League, knocked out of the Europa League, FA Cup and FA Cup and League Cup win?
No, simply because there's no Champions League football. I mean, the League Cup, it's nice to win, but I don't think people go, oh my God, United won the League Cup, you know. Whereas with the FA Cup, people look around and take notice. I think it's a good cup to win. You come across, you know, good teams. And, you know, the biggest factor, like I said, is the Champions League. I don't know whether the Griezmann deal is going to go through. If it's Champions League, you say it's going to go through regardless, but you know, it will take a hit. And I don't know if the Adidas deal takes a hit if we don't get Champions League. I'm not sure if that's this year or next year. But if we don't get Champions League, that's going to have massive effects on us with the future and the now, essentially. So no, I would not take that. No.
Okay, fair enough. Sammy has just made a good point. Sky Sports apparently saying that Manchester United could still have over another 30 games left this season, which is crazy. Ross, I've got one for you. Knocked out of every tournament, don't win any league, don't win any cups, but finish fourth in the Premier League. Can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Sorry, Mark. Yeah, I do you know what? I think that'd be it'd be unacceptable for a Manchester United fan. And do you know what? If we were Liverpool, if we were Man City currently, even if we were Tottenham, we'd probably consider that good enough. But we're not Tottenham, we're not Liverpool, we're not City. We need to be winning a trophy or getting near. No, forget that. We need to be winning the trophy as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, I think top four is an absolute priority. But going back to the one that was thrown to Sander, at this current
I was going to ask
moment
you
in
which
time,
one would you take out of those two?
Well, to be honest, it's a tough one, and I'd probably take the two trophies because I think if Mourinho won 2 trophies in his first season and didn't get Champions League football, there's no way you consider that season a fail from him because 2 trophies is good, but to just get fourth and that be it, I don't think that there'd be much. I personally wouldn't consider it much an improvement on what we did last season, given FA Cup and no Champions League football. Now, don't get me wrong, the football we are playing is an improvement. We can all see that. But I just think that Mourinho will want to and needs to win something in his first season. And because that's what Mourinho does. He wins trophies. And that's what Liverpool can't do. And that's what City will never do under Pep Guardiola, as far as I'm concerned. So I think we need to start winning early with Mourinho, and then we'll take that forward into next season. And I don't think Champions League will affect. I know we will lose the Adidas money, like you said, Sander, but I don't think that will affect Manchester United like it would affect other clubs. And we've seen our transfer dealings this summer, and I think it will be exactly the same next summer, regardless of Champions League football. I think we will be signing Griezmann because, sounds cliche, but we're Manchester United, and these players, and even like Griezmann, they're fanboys of Manchester United, and it'll be their dream to play for us. And I think it'll be the same Champions League football or not.
It's interesting. A lot of people on the live comments are saying fourth is the priority. Some people are saying they'd like the cups. I just want to say about Klopp and what he's done over the last week. He's an idiot. I've been watching football for decades, and the most idiotic thing he's done yesterday was to disrespect the FA Cup. Not because of the FA Cup or anything like that. I'll tell you a very quick story, actually. The FA Cup started killing itself because of how it treated Manchester United. We were the FA Cup champions in 1999. We withdrew from the Cup in 2000. A lot of people think it was our fault. It wasn't. We were pressured by the FA to withdraw because they wanted us to go to Brazil for this World Club Championship Cup thing because they wanted to get the World Cup in England in 2006. And they thought it would impact on them if we didn't go. We were forced out of it by the FA, which made a mockery of the FA Cup. And FA Cup was the game I used to watch as a kid, and they ruined it, and that's where it started to go. So I'm not defending the FA Cup, but what I am saying is, when you pick a team of kids like Klopp does and thinks he's being clever, you can't turn it on and off. I know it's not their first team, but you can't turn it off. It's no surprise to me that their form hasn't been very good this January, because it started with the team he selected against Plymouth in the home game, and it was their kids. But it infected the whole club. You can't turn it on and off. You can't turn off what you're going to prioritise and what you're not going to prioritise. Mourinho's the master of it. Every game's important. Some people are saying, why are we going for the League Cup? Even I've said it. But we're going for it. We're going to win it. Because he's not turning it off ever. It's always on. We go for it. We go for it. It's a mentality. We go for it. And that is... It doesn't matter what players you pick. They all train together. And it affects you if you get it wrong. So, very, very good point there. I would just very quickly, just to say, out of those two situations, I would take fourth place, and I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't. I think Champions League is more important than any tournament or any cup this year. I think we need to be in the Champions League. Because if you get the League Cup and you get the FA Cup, we're just back in the Europa League next year, and we're having this same conversation. Can we prioritise both? And I don't want to get into that circle. But while Frost is on the screen, then I'll go back to Sander. What is your thoughts on what Manchester United will have at the end of the season in May as things stand now? You're on mute again. Sorry, it's my fault.
I am. Apologies. No, apologies, Mark. Yeah, it's tough that, but do you know what? I think the EFL Cup is a given. I'd be very shocked if we didn't win that against Southampton, given Wembley. And do you know what? It's going to be a tough old road, the Europa League. But I think that regardless of what any of us think, I think Jose Mourinho will consider that a priority. I think he'll want to win it, and I think he'll see it as it's like a double insurance. Top four, yes, is priority, but you've got this insurance of winning Europa League is another way in. So if you go with two, all guns blazing, and probably the FA Cup out of all of that will be the least priority, which I don't like because I love the romance of the FA Cup, and seeing the sort of non-league teams go through today and yesterday was absolutely fantastic, and seeing Liverpool lose yesterday was fantastic as well, to be honest. So I think League Cup, Europa League, top four. I think that's where we will be. To be honest, given the FA Cup, I think if we get a difficult tie, if we get a Man City, if we get an Arsenal or a Tottenham, if we've got congested games around that time, I think Mourinho will consider the FA Cup the least of his priorities.
Yeah, we've had very good draws in the FA Cup. That's why we won it last year, because we had, must have had a good draw for Van Gaal to win it. So it's we've had a good couple of draws now. But you get somebody, like City away or Arsenal away or Chelsea away, and it becomes a difficult game because teams start to pick their first team now. We need a home game against Sutton or Lincoln would be nice. But what about you, Sander? What do you think we're going to end up with in May?
Well, I'll start with I hope, and I'm just going to say what I hope, and I think we'll get fourth, if not third. I think it's doable. City. Just Pep's a fraud. I don't care who says what. He just is, right? Klopp the flop. He's a mug, right? They're not that good. They're pressing. They've got a thin squad. It's not going to work out for them. So I think we can get third or fourth. I think we'll win the League Cup. I think we'll get knocked out of the Europa League, not because we've chosen to. I just think we will. Our away form has been very poor in recent years. Whether that will change under Mourinho or not, I don't know. I think we'll get knocked out of that. And I don't think we'll win the FA Cup. I'd love to. I just don't think we will. I think... Arsenal love to win it, don't they? That's their Premier League. So I think Arsenal or maybe even City might win that. So I think League Cup, fourth or third place, and knocked out the Europa League.
Interesting. I would go with... I'll stick with what I've always gone with. I think we'll finish second in the league. I think we'll win the League Cup. I think we'll get knocked out of the Europa League. And FA Cup will, like Ross said, depend on draws. If we get a good draw... If we can avoid Arsenal, City and Chelsea, I think we'll win it. I don't think there's anybody there to be worried about. So the FA Cup I'm not sure about. I'd love to win that because I didn't enjoy it as much as I'd enjoy it this year. League Cup will win, and I think we'll finish second in the league. I think Europa League is... I can't see us winning that. I just can't. I think European football and British teams just isn't a happy marriage at the moment. Thanks for coming on, Xander. Do you want to shout out your Twitter address, please?
Yeah, cheers, Mark. It's Sander_Seegers7.
Brilliant. Okay, and I know Ross's anyway, but I will let him shout it out. And thanks for coming on, Ross.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate it. It's at Hazza90. And give me a follow. I'll try and be as controversial as I can.
And I'm at Mark Goldbridge if people want to follow me. I get loads of shit and abuse, especially at weekends. If people just want to come and defend me, that would be lovely because I get absolute dog's abuse. But there you go. Jordan Devlin says, have to say Bastion was a breath of fresh air today. Brilliant performance. Lovely comment to finish on. I think if you've ever eaten that chewing gum called Airwaves and you put a couple in and it blows your mouth, it was like chucking 10 packets in today. It was more than a breath of fresh air. It was absolutely sensational. So very, very pleased and very happy because I love Schweinsteiger. But Martial as well. I thought Luke Shaw did well. Twansibi seeing that. I think we've been spoilt today. Fosu Mensah. Chris Smalling played well. Mkhitaryan. Somebody tried to tell me Fellaini played well. He didn't. He just scored a goal. He did not play very well at all. But that's me. Thanks to everybody on the live comments. You've been fantastic as usual. Really, really enjoy the Sunday show. It's the flagship show. It's my favourite show. Nostalgia or whatever. I just love it. But so please drop a like on the video. Keep subscribing to the channel. Tell your friends wherever you are. Tell them about the United Stand. Let's get it bigger and bigger and bigger, because one day it might be so big that they have to listen to us all. Talking of which, don't forget, 8:30 tomorrow night, Skype Goldbridge. Skype in. Whether you agree with what I've said, whether you've got other things to say, whether you want to have a rant about something that nobody's ever spoken about, whether you want to talk about transfers in or out, tomorrow night it's your show. You dictate it. Skype Goldbridge is the name on Skype. We'll be live from 8:30. Get involved. Loved it. Fantastic show. A personal shout out to me. There is a share button underneath this video. Just as you're finishing up, if you could share it onto your Facebook account or your Twitter account or your Instagram account or whatever you've got, that's great. It takes a couple of seconds and it helps the channel. But apart from that, we've been spoiled today. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic performance from United in the Fringe and the youth, and you've all been fantastic as well. And we start the week happy. And if you work with any Liverpool fans, if you're lucky enough to, like I am, I can't wait for Monday morning tomorrow. It's going to be hilarious. Their rut continues. Thanks for watching. Speak till tomorrow, and